Good morning. Today is May 23rd, 2024. This is the duly called meeting of the Texas Low-Level Radioactive Compact Waste Compact Commission. We are here in Bay City, Texas, at the one of the facilities of South Texas Project. My name is Brandon Hurley. I'm the chairman. Quickly, I will make sure they have a quorum. And I see Commissioner Edwards, I see Commissioner Morris, I see Commissioner Mundy, I see Vice Chairman Sullivan, and online I see Commissioner Sodick and Commissioner Nyack. So we have a quorum and we can proceed. As a reminder today, for those of you online, if you want to speak, if you use the raise your hand function that's at the bottom of the tray of the Zoom platform, we will recognize you as soon as possible. There's also a Q&A option if you want to pose questions that need to be answered. You can use that as well. And with that, I think we can proceed with today's business. I first and foremost want to thank all of the officials of South Texas Project, including Al Caprito and Steve Nance and all of their staff. They have shown us a wonderful time here. So appreciate the opportunity to come. We got to tour the facility yesterday, which was really, really informative. We also spent some time with everyone from South Texas. They were very gracious, so we appreciate that. And of course, they provided us our space today. So we appreciate that. It's been a very, very, very good couple of days here in Bay City, and we appreciate it. And I hope this is not the last time. So before we get started, I wanted to invite Al Caprito up. He is the Chief Administrative Officer of STP, and I think he's going to say a few words as well.
Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, for anyone who's coming up to speak today, you will go through this lectern on the left.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chairman Hurley, and to the entire commission. Does that work? Yep, better. All right. Well, good morning, Chairman, and to the entire commission. Welcome and thank you all for coming to STP. I know it's been a long time trying to coordinate our calendars, and we're finally able to get you to come out here and make that work for you. So, welcome to South Texas, or as Dr. Petticoat from Texas A&M taught me, howdy. I learned that a long while ago. So I'm very glad to have you all here. On behalf of STP leadership team and the entire executive team, I do welcome you to STP. I'm very glad that you were able to come out to the site yesterday and get a tour to see our facilities, and more importantly, the limitations of some of our facilities with regard to radioactive waste storage. Some of the folks who manage our program are here today, so I welcome the opportunity to have everybody really open and engaged. I just have to take a moment down memory lane. My first radioactive waste shipping experience, I actually worked at the Shoreham nuclear power plant and decommissioned that facility, shipped most of that out in sea-land containers to volume production facilities in Tennessee, and ultimately out to South Carolina for disposal. And I recall at that time there was discussion about it. At some point, maybe there'll be a waste disposal facility in Texas. And then not shortly after that, not long after that, I was at the Maine Yankee nuclear power plant in Maine, Vermont, Texas. We were talking about forming a division and forming a disposal facility here. 20-something years later, here we are. And I do remember that affectionately being known as the Serpent Turf. So that was the lobster. So in any event, I do welcome you all. I thank you all for coming. We have a good meeting. And just for those who might not be familiar, this is our emergency facility for joint information in the event of an emergency at the South Texas plant. And for anybody who might be interested, Steve could set you up with a quick tour of the behind the scenes facility. This is something you might have to see very often. Anybody who's interested in that ACC, we will make that happen. Thank you, and again, welcome to STP.
Thank you so much, Mr. Caprito. And for the record, the emergency center has never been used, correct? That is correct. It's important to have, but important to not. With that, we're actually at item 3 on our agenda. We've already introduced the commissioners. I also see, I'm sorry, Rosalind. I did not welcome Rosalind, our Attorney General representative, so we appreciate her being here as well. Are there any other elected officials or elected official staff here today or online? We see that Commissioner Jeanette has joined us, and we always appreciate his attendance. Judge Dolgener, our old friend Judge Dolgener, is online. He must not have anything better to do. Is there anyone here from the press today? Okay. Let me make sure there's nobody here from the press, and we'll call on Tony Lipinski.
Yeah, hi. This is Tony Lashinsky, state of Vermont, Vermont State Nuclear Engineer. I just wanted to say hello, that I'm here following what's going on, and thank you again for all of your work with regards to the Texas Compact Commission waste disposal facility. With that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Tony. We all understand that we have a couple of, maybe one county commissioner from Andrews County. We appreciate their attendance. It's always important that we keep enough channel of communication open with our Andrews County friends, because they are the ones that we're probably working for the most. So we appreciate their attendance as well. With that, we are through items 1 through 3 on the agenda. We can go to item 4. This is public comment. Again, if you are online and would like to speak, please use the raise your hand function. If you are here in person, if you would just raise your hand when you want to speak, and we will call you forward. This public comment section is for general comment about our operations and issues. We will have an opportunity to speak specifically on our agenda items as we get to those as well. So with that, is there any public comment? Karen Haddon has her hand raised. I'll call on Ms. Haddon.
Hi, this is Karen, Karen Haddon, and here on behalf of Seed Coalition. Good morning to all of you. I hope you're doing well. I mostly have a question today. If at some point during the day, you might be able to address what's going on with greater than Class C and the NRC, and how it might impact the Compact Commission and the operations of the Compact facility. So that's what I'm most interested in. And also, is STP getting a lot of their waste, or do they still have a lot of low-level waste on site? Those are things I'd love to hear today, if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Haddon. I will answer the last one first. Steve literally took us to their storage location yesterday, and they had just sent everything away. So it is relatively empty right now, and it's a result, again, if I speak incorrectly, as a result of their outage. They shipped relatively quickly after that outage. So we are here a couple of days after they're back online, and so they have emptied the coffers of their low-level waste and sent it all to West Texas. So as far as I know, there's nothing there yesterday. Is that correct? So in answer to your question, Karen, the answer is none. On the greater Class C issue, your interest is the same as ours, in that we want to know what's going to happen with it, but I don't know that I have the answers for you. Obviously, that is an issue that still rests largely with the NRC, and I do know that the state of Texas has taken a very active role in connection with that and communicating with the NRC about the greater than Class C issues. My understanding, I'm sure someone knows better than I do, that rulemaking and the comment period for that rulemaking is still ongoing. It's been pushed back a little bit more, maybe even late this year, November. So I don't know that anything's going to happen definitively, at least until November, maybe even longer. So we will continue to monitor it. Our conclusion is we want to make sure that we in 100% lockstep with whatever the governor's office position is. And I think that is being formulated as we speak. And I think we will try very hard to stay in contact with the governor's office and make sure that we follow their lead on this. Obviously, as it currently stands, state of the law is that we don't have any authority over greater than Class C. And that could change or it might not change. And we will stay nimble and try to react in a positive manner to whatever the change in the law and regulation is. But at this point, I would love to say that we have a huge influence over it, but I'm pretty sure we don't. It is something that's going to happen at the NRC and state of Texas level, and we will just follow suit accordingly. Jeff, is there anything about that you think I said incorrectly?
I think that's all accurate.
We say it's too much, but we will continue to monitor that very closely. And obviously, when we know things, we will make sure everybody else knows things as well. So, any other public comment?
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Seeing no hands raised, we can move on to item 5 in our agenda, which is our corporate waste control specialist. And we are so excited today that Lee Sanchez is here. We We would much rather see her than Dave, so we appreciate her. And with that, I'll turn it over to Alicia for her report.
All right, thank you, Chairman. I have some statistics to provide to you. Current fiscal year to date, and this is 9/1/2023 to 30/2024. Our in-compact disposals are 4,189 cubic feet and 817 curies. That's 50 credit per K. Out of compact disposals are 30,105 cubic feet and 81,586 curies, again decay. Total since inception through April 30th, 2024 are 341,981 cubic feet, and that's 3.8% of licensed capacity. 615,058 curies in decay, and that's 15.8% of our licensed capacity. And then with our constructed capacity, our total available capacity is 526,657 cubic feet. Our phase one constructed capacity is 450,000 cubic feet. Our remaining phase one capacity is 108,019 cubic feet. So there's 24% remaining. Our phase two constructed capacity is 425,000 cubic feet. Our remaining phase two capacity is 418,638 cubic feet, 98% remaining. And our in-service date for phase two was February 15th of 2024. The big headliner today is related to our quarterly payments that we make to the state of Texas and County and our total payments. So our quarterly payment to TCQ, and that was for the period of 12/1 to 2/29, was $2,489,238. To Andrews County was $586,309. Here's the big numbers. Since inception to TCQ, $81,875,977, and to Andrews County, $18,382,491, for a grand total of $100,258,468. So that's it, that $100 million mark.
Alicia, I did not list your title because I'm not trying to say it. What is your title?
The easiest way is Senior Vice President of anything they need to do. I handle a multitude of different things, key initiatives, growing the company, government relations, community relations. I help with sales, just various sort of topics.
And we were talking last night, you actually offer that.
I do.
And that isn't just for WCS in the community.
Right, we have a storefront right across from the courthouse in Andrews, and then I'm also out at the site periodically, checking on things there.
Do you have any questions for Ms. Sanchez? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you for being here, Jay. Do you know anything about the report sent annually regarding the cell material internet cell? The question is, for 6 months, based on the current management role, the report of agreement holders, and it's really, really long, and I'm impressed by how quickly y'all are getting things around. So that's great. But some of the generators don't look like our local waste generators. It might be another type.
So I don't, without seeing the report, having specific details, but yes, there are definitely customers that never ship to the compact facility. That their waste doesn't meet the criteria to require disposal in the compact facility or federal facility, and they're required to do this.
Well, we're talking specifically about the
right.
So, Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going here. Doesn't look like there are little radioactive waste generators, maybe another type of more. So,
Yes, I mean, there can be CAS only, there can be TSCA only that don't have anything to do with radioactive waste.
yeah, it's just, the report's a little confusing to us, because we did this, and we don't know of this list of essentials, what's radioactive, low level radioactive waste, and what isn't. So, I was just wondering.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely make a note of that, not today.
Well, at least you turn on that.
TSCA PCBs.
Oh, okay. I actually have a question too. I noticed that waste is going into these stuff. How is that decision made between where it goes, which stuff?
The most simplistic way is to say it's a game of Tetris, just about to ensure that we maximize the most available airspace possible. So we are definitely still utilizing for our modular concrete canisters, the original phase 1 area. We've actually only placed 2 items in the new cell, which were 2 large component items. So we have plans, we have, STP eventually will be sending some large components, and so we've already planned all of that out.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I want to add another comment. I was talking to Mr. Carlson recently, and at the local wastewater meeting, and we were talking about how the placement takes place, what a complex process that is. It might be interesting to some of us sometime, if maybe y'all could tell us more about how that's done. Sure. How, cats used and everything else, reading on it. That's pretty fast.
Yes, I mean, that's exactly right. We have engineers that are on a regular basis are looking at the best placement for each item that's placed.
And another question I had was, I looked at Dave's slideshow from the seminar, and there was a picture of the federal facility that I guess I never seen the picture before. I always, incorrectly thought the federal facility was large and empty, but it was really full of large containers. What is that weight?
I'm assuming it looked like tubes about in the middle of
Yeah.
the cell. Is that what you're asking about? It's depleted uranium cylinders from.
In I know that's a huge. How full is it?
Not even 0.5%. Not even halfway full. We are at, the last number I saw was less than 3% of our disposal capacity.
Is the waste coming into it primarily what you drive?
It's a variety.
Any other questions for Monica? Thank you very much. With that, we're through item 5. We can do item 6. This is one that has been a long time on our agenda, and we'll continue to see on that agenda. This is an update on the proposed revision to 31. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Janeka would like to return to the comment section. So I think you'd like to make a comment. So let me call on Commissioner Bobby Janeka of the TCQ. We will start what we're doing and let him this.
Hi there, Chairman. Thank you so much for your indulgence, and apologies for not raising my hand earlier during the public comment section. I was racing to track down and get my hands on the actual letter. I wanted to read, Bobby Janeka, Commissioner, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a comment. Our agency received a letter earlier this month from Governor Abbott regarding this topic, greater than Class C waste. I just wanted to read a brief excerpt from it and comment briefly that TCQ intends to reiterate to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission as they contemplate any rule changes that Texas fully reserves the right to control what waste streams are authorized for disposal. And to some degree, that may be our agency that authorizes it. It may well be the legislature or more broadly state leadership. Speaking of issues related to things like high level waste or greater than Class C waste. But I will begin reading here from this letter we recently received. Quote, recently concerns have been raised by the Andrews County Commissioners Court about another waste stream, namely greater than Class C radioactive waste. Here too, I have long supported a cautious approach. On April 23rd, 2019, I sent a letter to NRC and the U.S. Department of Energy to, quote, oppose any increase in the amount or concentration of radioactivity authorized for disposal at the facility in Andrews County, Texas, end quote. which would include GTCC waste. Disposal of GTCC in Texas's low-level radioactive waste disposal facility is currently prohibited, according to the TCQ rule codified at 30 Texas Administrative Code. It's cited. Caution remains the watchword with respect to GTCC, for nothing I've learned about this issue to date has changed my views. In exercising its regulatory authority over the Andrews County facility, therefore, TCEQ must remain sensitive to local concerns about the disposal of GTCC radioactive waste, end quote. And for my part, I do want to affirm that we will be fully in line with the governor's views on this issue, and reiterate to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and hopefully reiterate that commitment to the citizens of Andrews, that as regulators evaluate these waste streams, they may well be technically appropriate for disposal in a facility in Texas, but we need to ensure that they are also socially appropriate and have that community, that local consent. So I appreciate the opportunity to return back to the earlier item. Thank you again. And thanks for having your meeting at location at one of our nuclear power facilities in Texas. I'm proud to see y'all there.
Commissioner Jack, what was the date of that letter?
May 17th, 2024.
So very recent. Thank you very much, Commissioner Janek. Hold on. Commissioner, did you have a question?
Yeah, whose jurisdiction is it to make that decision? Is it the NRC or the governor of Texas?
At the moment, Commissioner Sadiq, I think the NRC is considering their decisions within their regulatory authority, but Texas as an agreement state has discretion in how we implement and have consistency with those federal decisions. And currently, our statutes would require us to follow a process that I believe allows the Texas public to have a say, our agency to have a say, the governor of our state to have a say in considering whether GTCC wastes or some portion of GTCC wastes would be appropriate for disposal in any facilities in Texas.
Who has the ultimate decision? The ultimate jurisdiction? I mean, is this another business?
When you say ultimate, many of us have the opportunity to say no. If you are asking about a hypothetical disposal of GTCC wastes in Vermont or Texas or some part of our country, I think that currently, as I understand the laws, there are multiple state and federal entities that would have an ultimate ability to say no there. But I'm happy to discuss your question in more detail at your convenience.
Just a reminder, I introduced Commissioner Janeka from the TC. He's also the state of Texas, the liaison to the NRC. So he obviously is an appropriate authority on those issues as well. So again, thank you, Commissioner Janeka. Any other questions about it?
I'd like to comment to Commissioner Sadiq. This may also fall under what's known as the major decisions doctrine of the Supreme Court. The state of Texas is litigating on that with respect to high-level waste. But Supreme Court holds that certain things that are, quote, major decisions, and I'll go into the law getting into that, but things that are, quote, major decisions need to be decided by Congress rather than at the agency level. So that is one potential issue.
Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions? Thank you very much, Commissioner Janeka. So, when we left off, we were on item 6 of our agenda, which is an update on the proposed revisions 31 TC section 67524, which we have referred to as the management. We had hoped to be voting that rule out by today. However, we are in some ongoing discussions with the governor's office, others, and still working on the rule. I think it is to the benefit of the rule, to the benefit of all of us. So these discussions are important, and we want to conclude those before we move to adopt the rule. So we will not be voting on the but I want to reiterate, and I've said this now for several meetings, it is fully our intent to have a rule. This is not to be viewed, I think, as us changing our mind about the rule. It's just about us refining and revising the rule and making sure that we consider all of the affected people's input, including especially the governor's office, because we want to obviously follow their lead on this issue. And so those discussions are ongoing. Commissioner Mundy has been in a lot of communication with the governor's office over this, and that will continue. And we hope that we will have the rule ready to adopt soon, or the rule's not ready to adopt, have a plan in place soon for achieving our goals. We are very cognizant of the fact that under the Administrative Procedures Act, a 6-month window from initial publication to get that rule adopted. And we think that 6-month deadline is sometime in July. And so since we don't have another meeting scheduled until August, if we get things ironed out and we can proceed with the adoption of the rule, we may call a special meeting for that very purpose. But that will be determined here in the next couple of weeks as we continue to work with the governor's office. And I think that's the entire update on the status of it. Commissioner Mundy, is there anything else to add to that?
Not really at this time, unless you want me to just talk about that organic act.
I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good opportunity, because I think one of the things, since we've been working on this for so long, maybe we have lost sight of why we're doing what we're doing. So maybe that's a good opportunity to say 2 words about that.
This is law school crash course Reader Digest version about this commission. This entity that we're here today is a federally created entity. It's created by Congress. And if you go to our webpage, the citations are there about the act that created us. Lawyers refer to acts creating an entity as an organic act, the one that caused us to come into creation. If you look at that federal act that created this commission, look at section or Article 6, which has prohibited acts and penalties. And this is the root of why we're here meeting all the time and what we're doing, among other things. But I'm going to go over them just real fast so that it provides the framework to understand why we're passing a management rule and what kind of issues we consider in that regard. But 601 says no person, again, this is Article 6 of the Organic Act created by Congress about prohibited acts and penalties. 601, no person shall dispose of low-level radioactive waste generated within a party state unless disposal is at the compact facility, except as otherwise provided in 305(7). Section 602, no person shall manage or dispose of any low-level radioactive waste within the party state unless the low-level radioactive waste was generated within the party state, except as provided in 305(6). Then nothing herein shall be construed to prohibit storage or management of low-level radioactive waste by a generator, comma, nor its disposal pursuant to 10 CFR Part 2302. And then 603, and I love my E here, but I'm going to correct him on one thing. He recently received a question at a public forum about whether or not this entity has penalty authority, and he gave an answer. And I would direct, more specifically, look at 603, says violations of this article may result in prohibiting the violator from disposing of low-level radioactive waste in the compact facility, comma, or in the imposition of penalty surcharges on the shipments to the facility as determined by the commission. Now, you notice there's a separate provision for disposal and management. Those are defined in the act, and there's separate definitions about disposal and management. Disposal is straightforward enough, and it's what we deal with up here. Management, and what this rule is now looking at, is defined as, and this is from section 201, subpart 11, management means collection, consolidation, storage, packaging, or treatment. And so if you go back to 603, where it says no person shall dispose of the facility, and it has separate provision for manage, both of those require authorizations. The current draft management rule is trying to fill in some blanks that deal with issues such as storage or treatment from somebody bringing it in from out of state. We've had a rule in place that requires reporting about management of waste, meeting that definition every 6 months. The draft rule currently would change the 6-month reporting to every month. And that's kind of the crux of it in a nutshell. We're in talks with the governor's office, since they are folks, the governor's, the one directs the policy for the state. And so we're looking to them for guidance on what they want us to do, whether they like this rule, another rule, or some other rule. And so we're actively in discussion with them on and dialogue, and Commissioner Jeanette is involved in that, as well as the governor's staff. So that's just a quick Reader's Digest version.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Any questions before we move on about the status of the rule, or where we go from here? Okay, I think we can move on then. That is item 6. We'll now move on to item 7, which is the capacity committee report, which candidly I didn't even talk to you about before we got here. So let me comment quickly and say, obviously, with the opening of the extension of the current cell into the new cell that we were just talking about with Ms. Sanchez, a lot of the capacity concerns go away. However, one of the things that I'm going to ask the capacity committee to do in the near future is kind of give us their opinion on what reservations of the new capacity should be for things such as an emergency decommissioning of one of our power plants, or any other type of contingency that we need to provide for, in terms of making sure that we always have capacity available to serve the need for any compact generator, because obviously that is our primary mission. So we need to stay cognizant of that and maybe be a little bit more proactive now that we have a little bit of breathing room with that capacity. So with that, I will also turn it over to Lisa to see if there's any other things to report.
I think the only thing that I would add to that is that it's a very pragmatic approach. It's incumbent upon the capacity committee to create metrics that allow us to see our ability to serve the mission in terms of the things that you described, Chairman, well in advance of there being any issue. And the expansion allows plenty of breathing room for that. So we'll continue with that.
Thank you, Commissioner. With that, we are through item 7. We can move on to item 8. Even though I just asked Jeff to speak extensively, I'll ask him again. This is a contingency plan committee report, and I'll see if there's a report from that.
Nothing new on that.
Okay. So with that, we are on to item 9, which is our import applications for the day. Our first one is from Nuclear Sources and Services Inc., also referred to as NSSI, and I will turn it over to the chairman of our technical committee, Vice Chairman Sol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. First of all, can everyone hear me okay? Well, the technical committee has received and reviewed an import application from Nuclear Sources and Services, Inc. It was received January 30, 2024, and it's number 1-0424-00. In this case, NSSI is a broker who is a licensed waste collector and processor requesting authorization to dispose of waste in accordance with the Act. They have specifically, pardon me. They have specifically requested authorization to dispose of Class A, Class B, and Class C stable and unstable sealed sources in containers, including depleted uranium shielding, either separately or used to shield sources, passivated depleted uranium, and dry active waste. And those waste streams were approved by TCEQ for disposal at the site via letter correspondence dated May 9, 2024. They have requested authorization for 74 cubic feet and 20 curies. We did receive a letter from WCS recommending approval of the application. NSSI has indicated the waste will originate from all states except those in the Texas-Vermont Compact, and that would also include Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. Any waste that would come from the Northwest Compact, Southwestern Compact, or Rocky Mountain Compacts will generally require an export authorization, and to date, those export authorizations and generator authorizations have not been submitted, so those would have to be submitted before any disposals could actually take place. And NSSI has requested an agreement for a one-year period with the termination date of August 31, 2024. The technical committee recommends approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have one question. This kind of volume and this number of curies, is this likely a single shipment or is this multiple shipments? Do we know? Or Jamal, do you know?
Yes, we're gonna step to the podium.
No, you don't have to. You just go.
Yes, we're trying to get as much waste in a single shipment before August. That's correct.
So at that volume, let me go back. I think it was 74 cubic feet, probably about 10 drums.
That's exactly correct.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I think we can move on to a motion.
I make a motion to approve the import application from Nuclear Sources and Services, Inc., number 1-0424-00. The waste class is Class A, Class B, and Class C. The waste form is stable and unstable. I will not repeat the waste stream, but it's as I indicated earlier. The volume is 74 cubic feet. The total radioactivity is 20 curies. The waste will come from all states except Texas and Vermont, but including Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. And if it is going to be just one shipment, that prior to that shipment, NSSI will have to provide us any generator authorizations that are from the materials, as well as export authorizations from the appropriate compacts. Since they have a current agreement with us under the 470 31 671-24. Sorry, I couldn't remember that right quote. They have to remain in compliance with the agreement they have with the commission, and any changes to that rule, or we would in fact consider termination of the import agreement. And the agreement would have a termination date of August 31, 2024.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion about the import application of NSSI represented in item 9A? And I want to reiterate, Vice Chairman Sullivan made an important point. The agreement will also be, one of the conditions of the agreement will be compliance with our current and any future version of the manual. Any other questions or comments before? Any public comment on item 9? Okay, I think we can move on to a vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the import application of NSI represented in item 9A on our agenda, please indicate so by saying aye. All opposed, no. Motion passes. We can move on to item 9B, the import application for Conseco Materials. That's over to Vice Chairman.
The technical committee has received and reviewed an import application on the screen from Conseco Materials Management Center. That was received March 27, 2024, and it's number 1-0425-00. In this case, Toxco is a broker who is a licensed waste processor requesting authorization to dispose of waste in accordance with the Act. They have requested specific authorization for Class A, Class B, and Class C unstable Low-level radioactive waste that consists of resin, metal, DAW, sealed sources, depleted uranium shielding, DU MOC rods, DU pins, and other similar DU material from the separation cycle. Those waste streams were approved for disposal at the site via their correspondence from TCEQ dated May 9, 2024. They have requested authorization for 440 cubic feet and 30 curies. We did receive a letter from WCS recommending approval of the import request. Toxco has indicated that the waste will originate from the Northwest, Midwest, Rocky Mountain, Southwestern, Central, Southeast, and the Appalachian compacts. And I would note any waste from the Northwest, Southwestern, or Rocky Mountain compacts will generally require export authorization. To date, those materials have not been provided, including generator authorizations, so those would have to be provided before any shipments can be made. And they have requested an agreement with the termination date of August 31, 2024. Technical Committee recommends approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the technical committee on item 9B, the first import application of Toxco Materials Management? Okay, now we can move on to a motion.
I make a motion to approve the import application from Toxco Materials Management Center, number 1-0425-00. The waste class is Class A, Class B, and Class C. The waste form is unstable. I will not repeat the waste stream. It's as I indicated earlier. The volume is 440 cubic feet. The radioactivity is 30 curies. Waste will originate from the Northwest, Midwest, Rocky Mountain, Southwestern, Central, Southeast, Appalachian compacts. And Toxco will have to provide any necessary export authorizations and generator authorizations for those materials in no more than 4 packages. Those will be sent to the administrative group within the commission for review prior to any shipment. And the agreement would have a termination date of August 31, 2024. And I'll just note that is the end of our current fiscal year.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion about the first import application of Toxco Materials? Commissioner Sonic.
That strikes me as, given that this is from all those different places, all over the place, and that it involves all different kinds of materials, how come it's such a small shipment, both in terms of cubic feet and curies?
I think that's the nature of being a broker, is they assimilate sources from everywhere, and they're usually very small, and that's the reason you use a broker and don't ship themselves. It's because it makes more economic sense for them to use a broker, and so, people may be giving them a fraction of a cubic foot, and so it could be from any number of places, but you have to, assimilate all that together, and it ends up being not that large a volume. But is that correct, John?
Yes, I mean, the volume is actually 440 cubic feet, so it's not a trivial volume. The curies are only 30, and you would look at that and say, notice in waste streams, they're including depleted uranium, which is a very low activity material, but it can be very heavy, but it can also have a lot of volume if you've got various kinds of materials that are contaminated with depleted uranium. You can create a lot of waste with very little activity.
I'm sorry, I must have read it wrong. It's 440. I read 40. Okay, never mind.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, now we move on to a vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the import application of Toxco Materials represented in item 9B on our agenda, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, opposed. Motion passes. The next item is item 9C, which is the second application of Toxco Materials. I am not sure that their actual application is in our packet. Is it? Did I just miss it? Did it go over the slide?
Page 140.
Okay, all right, so I'll turn it back over to the vice chairman for the second topical materials import application.
The technical committee has received and reviewed an import application from Toxical Materials Management Center. Was received March 27, 2024, and it's number 1-0426-00. In this case, the application is actually identical to the one we just went through, except this application, they've requested the next fiscal year. So other than that, the application from my reading is actually identical to one we just went through. So I will spare some time for the commissioners and the audience and say technical committee has reviewed the application. It's identical, except for the term of the import agreement, and the technical committee recommends approval of this import application with the same conditions as the last one. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
That was my confusion. That's all the information. So is there any questions for the technical committee on the second import application
Are there any downsides approving so far in advance? You think
Actually, today, commissioners will note we have several import requests for next fiscal year. So, in fact, I want to say there might only be one more that is for this fiscal year. The rest of them are all for next fiscal year.
And candidly, without the expansion, it probably would have been a bigger issue, but with the expansion, probably those things are no way.
I think I would also, I know Alicia might speak to this. I suspect that many of the entities that are requesting imports, they look at when our meetings are planned, and the next meeting on our current schedule, I believe, is not until August. And so, if it's as in past years, many of the importers don't want to wait till the last meeting of the fiscal year, because if for some reason we didn't have that meeting, or it got postponed, or whatever, then the new fiscal year would start and they might not have approved the imports. So they tend to put them in either the May or June timeframe.
One other point, the way we write the agreements, the actual agreement runs out at the end of our fiscal year. So we typically don't get one, say, for 12 months just rolling. So this kind of gives them flexibility on time.
Typically would be a stretch. We have in the last 5-6 years, we have not granted anything to go over a fiscal year. I don't see us doing that in the future.
Any other questions for the technical committee on the second import application of toxical materials? Okay, we'll call on Ms. Haddon. She has her hand raised.
Karen, you're on.
Hi, thank you. I'd like to comment on this application and have it apply to the other applications as well. Clearly, the waste has to go, that you're approving has to go into a dry environment. And I would like to ask that you guys get a report or update on water that's present at the site. How much is there? How many of the test wells are saturated and how many are not? And which wells are now being used for testing and which ones have been canceled as far as their use, so that we know that when these applications are approved, that there's not a problem with contact with water. I would like to ask that you get a report on that and that it be made public as part of one of your meetings, because as it is right now, Seed Coalition would like to be on the record as opposing these import applications until that occurs. There's been so many warnings about water at the site for so many years, and we haven't heard any kind of update for some time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Haddon. And it is a point of clarification. Obviously, with each application comes a certification letter from the TCQ. As part of that certification, they are certifying that the waste is acceptable according to their safety regulations and their waste criteria, which would include the issues that Ms. Haddon just spoke to. Obviously, it falls on TCQ to regulate issues of any kind of groundwater issues or anything else related to that. So our decision making, while we get to consider anything we want to, we do rely on those TCQ letters for certification that the waste fits the waste acceptance criteria and is safe for disposal at the site, which would include obviously these groundwater monitoring issues. So I think that's a request that maybe is more appropriate for TCQ, and we obviously don't want to step on anybody's feet or toes about overextending where our jurisdiction lies, so we will defer to TCQ on that. And I think Commissioner Decker may have some comments on it as well, so I will let him speak now.
Hi, Bobby Janeka. Thank you so much, Chairman. Very well said. Raised my hand simply to make the points that you yourself made in your concluding remarks just now. That is very explicitly not information that the Compact Commission deals with in day-to-day and has under their jurisdiction. That is a TCQ issue that I am happy to support our staff providing all the information that we can to Ms. Haddon. And I appreciate your commission's interest on it. We will certainly provide the information to y'all as well, if that's a topic that you're interested in. But I do want to be clear that that's not an issue that's ours. We tag. I acknowledge that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Janeka. Did someone else have a comment?
I was just going to add a note, follow along with what he just said. Kind of the difference of what TCQ does is Commissioner Janeka just said versus us. The states cannot regulate or interfere with commerce and movement of goods between states. That's why this commission was created as a federal entity, the federal government, of which we are an extension. They delegate authority to the states that are members of the compact. We regulate the flow of goods between the states, but the actual environmental condition enforcement, the state agency, in this case TCQ, is the one that has jurisdiction for on the ground license enforcement, oversight, things like that, not us. We deal with watching the flow between states while we're approving import and export authorizations, as well as the function of protecting actual hole in the ground for our in-compact generators to have room in case they ever need it. So that's not the difference of what we do versus TCQ.
Any other comments? Vice Chairman Sullivan.
So I'll close this discussion. When I go through the technical report, I know it seems like I'm just doing it by rote and it's sort of the same thing, but I make a point to indicate that for every import application that comes before us, before we can approve it, we must have a letter from the TCEQ specific to that waste stream and to that import application, where they have reviewed it and they put in writing that it is approved for disposal at the compact waste facility. That's a requirement of Texas legislation. And so that's why I make a point of it whenever I review these applications. So that's why we do it the way we do it.
Okay. I think we can not make a motion for it, right? Okay. So with that, we will move on to a motion on item 9C. The same application Toxico Materials.
I make a motion to approve the import application from Toxico Materials Management Center, number 1-0426-00. The waste class is Class A, Class B, and Class C. The waste form is unstable, and I will repeat the waste stream this time. Low-level radioactive waste that consists of resin, metal, DAW, sealed sources, depleted uranium shielding, DU mock rods, DU pins, and other similar DU material from the separation cycle. The volume is 440 cubic feet. The total curies is 30. Material will originate from the Northwest, Midwest, Rocky Mountain, Southwestern, Central, Southeast, and Appalachian compacts. Toxico will have can make up to 4 material packages or information packages that they'll provide to the administrative group within the commission to provide export authorizations and generator authorizations. Those must be provided prior to any shipment of materials. And in this case, the agreement, it was a little unclear when we first got the application, but we had communication with Toxco, and the agreement will be for a period of 1 year, but it will be next fiscal year. So it will be September 1, 2024 to August 31, 2025.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's motion second. Any further discussion about the second application of Toxco Materials represented in item 9C on our agenda? Any public comment? Ms. Haddon has her hand raised again, so we'll let her speak.
No, I think I had it lowered. I'm sorry. I thought I did.
I'm sorry, Karen. No other raised hands or public comment here in person. We will move on to a vote. All in favor of those of the motion to approve the second import application of Toxco Materials represented in item 9C on our agenda, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. We can now move on to item 9B, the import application of Xcel Energy. I'll turn it back over to our vice chair.
The committee has received and reviewed an import application from Xcel Energy Monticello Nuclear Generating Plant. It's received March 31, 2024. It's number 1-0427-00. In this case, Monticello is a generator requesting authorization to dispose of waste in accordance with the Act. They have requested authorization for Class A, Class B, and Class C unstable, depleted powder and bead ion exchange resin, dry active waste trash, and hydrogen oxygen recombiner catalyst. Those waste streams were approved for disposal at the compact waste facility via letter of correspondence from DCQ dated May 9, 2024. Monticello has requested a volume of 850 cubic feet and a total radioactivity of 90 curies. In this, we did receive a letter from WCS recommending approval of the import application. Minnesota is part of the Midwest Compact and does not require export authorization. And took a little correspondence, but we were able to determine that Monticello wanted a import agreement for next fiscal year, so that the dates would be September 1, 2024 through August 31, 2025. That committee recommends approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the technical committee on item 9B, the import application of Xcel Energy Monticello? Hearing none, we can move on to a motion.
I make a motion to approve the import application from Xcel Energy Monticello Nuclear Generating Plant number 1-0427-00. The waste class is Class A, Class B, and Class C. The waste form is unstable. The waste stream is depleted powder and bead ion exchange resin, dry active waste trash, and hydrogen oxygen recombiner catalyst. The volume is 850 cubic feet. The total radioactivity is 90 curies. Waste will originate from Minnesota, which does not require export authorization. And the agreement would be for a 1 year period from August 1, 2024 to August 31, 2025.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion about the import application of Xcel Energy Monticello represented in item 9B on our agenda? Hearing none, we can move on to vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the import application of Xcel Energy Monticello represented in item 9B on our agenda, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. John, would now be a nice time for a break? We've been going about an hour.
I'm okay, but I'll defer to the rest of the commission.
Just best you shake your head, yes.
I want a coffee refill.
Okay, so we just want about an hour, so let's take about a 10-minute break. I think we'll be done well before 11 at this phase. So we'll take a break now, and we will come back at approximately 10 to 10.
Yeah, I can. You want to change your view of this thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to raise a lot. You can't make $10 million. Bottom line.
A little longer break than we expected. Okay, I think we're going to be done in plenty of time. The next item on the agenda, getting back to the import application, item 9E, which is the import application of VWX Technology in Lynchburg. I will turn it over to the vice chairman.
The technical committee has received and reviewed an import application for BWX Technologies NOG Lynchburg. It was received April 1, 2024. It's number 1-0428-00. In this case, BWX is a generator requesting authorization to dispose of waste in accordance with the Act. And they have requested authorization for Class A unstable DU residual waste. It is soil-like in texture, in poly bottles contained in metal drums. DU contaminated debris and metal, and U metal will be contained in metal drums. That those waste streams were approved for disposal at the site via letter correspondence from TCEQ dated May 9, 2024. BWX has requested a volume of 100 cubic feet, a total radioactivity of 1 curie. We did receive a letter from WCS recommending approval of this import application. The applicant has indicated the waste will originate from Virginia, which is part of the North-Southeast Compact and does not require export authorization. And after some correspondence with them, they've requested a 1-year import application. And the dates will be September 1, 2024 through August 31, 2025. The technical committee recommends approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the technical committee? Can I have one? With that volume versus that very small amount of curies, does that not appear to be waste that would be appropriate for the record facility?
I think the problem is it's depleted uranium.
Oh, okay. Any other questions for the technical committee? Hearing none, we can move on to a motion.
I make a motion to approve the import application from BWX Technologies NOG Lynchburg, number 1-0428-00. Waste class is Class A. The waste form is unstable. I'm not going to repeat the waste stream. The volume is 100 cubic feet. The radioactivity is 1 curie. The waste will originate from Virginia, and the import agreement would be for a period of 1 year with the dates of September 1, 2024 through August 31, 2020.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion about item 9E, the import application of BWX Technologies NOC Lynchburg? Any public comments on item 9E? Hearing none, we can move on to a vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the import application of BWX Technologies NOC Lynchburg in item 9E on our agenda, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. That we can move on to item 9F, which is the import application of Thomas Gray, and I will turn it back over to Vice Chairman Sullivan.
The technical committee has received and reviewed an import application from Thomas Gray and Associates Incorporated, doing business as Environmental Management and Controls, Inc. It was received April 5, 2024, and it's number 1-0429-00. In this case, Thomas Gray is a broker who is a licensed waste collector and processor requesting authorization to dispose of waste in accordance with the Act. They have requested authorization for Class A, Class B, and Class C, stable and unstable discrete items, including sealed sources, macro encapsulated and stabilized in concrete, depleted uranium, low-level radioactive waste, and exempt items. And those waste streams were approved for disposal at the site via letter correspondence from TCEQ dated May 9, 2024. They've requested a volume of 2,000 cubic feet and a total radioactivity of 1,000 curies. We did receive a letter from WCS recommending approval of the import application. That waste will originate from a long list: Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, District of Columbia, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, which I misspelled, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. Any waste that would originate from the southwestern or Rocky Mountain compacts will require an export authorization. To date, those export authorizations and generator authorizations have not been provided. The agreement would be for a period of 1 year, September 1, 2024 through August 31, 2025. And I need to check one thing. Sure I didn't miss something. My apologies. The applicant indicated that the waste is from small quantity generators. And so the list of generator types is potentially problematic. They do list utilities. And so if any of that waste came from a nuclear utility, we would not consider it a small quantity generator. But none of it comes from nuclear utility, and basically should be okay. So we'll have to review that when they submit the generator authorizations and any export permits. But the technical committee recommends approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. They also did self-generate waste, I'll note, and they have provided information that self-generation seems reasonable.
Any questions for the committee on Thomas Gray's input application? And again, as a reminder, Thomas Gray is a broker, correct?
That is correct.
So that may be some of the basis for some of the variety of what we're seeing in the self-generation and things. Any other questions? Hearing none, I think we can move on to a motion.
The technical committee I recommend approval of the Thomas Gray and Associates Incorporated DBA Environmental Management and Controls Inc. import application number 1-0429-00. The waste form is Class A, Class B, and Class C. I'm sorry, the waste classification is. The waste form is stable and unstable. I'm not going to repeat the waste stream. The volume is 2,000 cubic feet. The total radioactivity is 1,000 curies. I'm also not going to repeat that long list of states, but I will indicate that any waste coming from the southwestern or Rocky Mountain compacts will require export authorizations, and they were also required to provide the generator authorizations in up to 4 information packages they submit to the commission to review. At the time, we'll also review for the small quantity generator status. And the agreement will be for a 1-year period from September 1, 2024 through August 31, 2025.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is any further discussion of the import application of Thomas Gray and Associates represented in item 9F on our agenda. Any public comment on the Thomas Gray application? Hearing none, we can move on to a vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the import application of Thomas Gray and Associates, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. With that one, we will move on to the next item on our agenda, item 9G, the import application of Constellation Energy. We'll turn it back over to the Vice Chairman.
The technical committee has received and reviewed an import application from Constellation Energy Generation. It was received April 17, 2024. It's number 1-0430-00. In this case, Constellation is a generator requesting authorization to dispose of waste in accordance with the Act. They have requested authorization for Class A, Class B, and Class C unstable, dewatered bead and Powdex resin, condensate filter sludge, reactor water cleanup resin, fuel pool filter sludge, non-fuel reactor components, process filters, and large components. Those waste streams were approved for disposal at the site. The letter corresponds from TCEQ dated May 9, 2024. They've requested a volume of 3,000 cubic feet and a total radioactivity of 5,000 curies. We did receive a letter from WCS recommending approval of the import application. Waste will originate from Illinois, Maryland, New York, and Pennsylvania, and those states are part of the Central, Midwest, and Appalachian compacts, along with one, should say, one unaffiliated state, and they do not require export authorization. And they have requested a one-year agreement with dates of September 1, 2024 through August 31, 2025. Committee recommends approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question, but I think it's for Mark. I think this is marketing brochure stuff, so don't worry. Is Constellation the largest generator of low-level nuclear waste in our country?
We have the largest nuclear fleet. I
So,
think
Stand-
it's the largest generator of it, but operating utilities, yes, we have most plants and all generate most waste from nuclear operations.
What's the earliest decommissioning date? Anything else go on at this point? Is there any set at all?
No, not at this time.
In what states are y'all owners in?
For our nuclear fleet,
Yes.
the ones that we listed right there, so
Okay.
Illinois, Pennsylvania, Maryland, New York.
Thank you.
Yep.
I didn't have any other questions for John. I just wanted to ask Mark. And by the way, we appreciate you being here. Thanks for going on the tour yesterday with us, and thanks for being here today. We
Yeah,
appreciate
thank you
it.
for having me.
Any other questions for the technical committee? Hearing none, I think we can move on to a motion.
I make a motion to approve the import application from Constellation Energy Generation, number 1-0430-00. The waste class is Class A, Class B, and Class C. The waste form is unstable. I'm not going to repeat the waste description. The volume is 3,000 cubic feet. The total radioactivity is 5,000 curies. The waste will originate from Illinois, Maryland, New York, and Pennsylvania. And the agreement would be for a one-year period from September 1, 2024 through August 31, 2025.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion. Any further discussion about the import application of Constellation Energy? Hearing none, we can move on to a vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the import application of Constellation Energy represented in item 9B, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. We will note that Commissioner Bradford has joined us, and we're happy to see him. Hello, Peter. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Brad. Thanks.
With that, we can move on to item 9H, which is the import application of PG&E Diablo Canyon. And we'll turn it back over to our Vice Chairman.
The technical committee has received and reviewed an import application from Pacific Gas and Electric Diablo Canyon Power Plant. It was received April 17, 2024, and it's number 1-0431-00. In this case, Diablo Canyon is a generator requesting authorization to dispose of waste in accordance with the Act. They have requested authorization for Class A and Class B unstable dewatered resin and dewatered activated carbon, and those waste streams were approved for disposal at the site via letter correspondence from TCEQ dated May 9, 2024. They've requested authorization for 357 cubic feet and a total radioactivity of 118 curies. That waste will originate from California, which is from the Southwestern Compact and does require export authorization, which has not been provided today. And they have requested an agreement with a one-year period from September 1, 2024 through August 31, 2025. Technical committee recommends approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
John, they list all those small quantity generators?
I think that was just a typographical error. Clearly, nuclear power facilities are never considered small quantity generators.
He actually, someone actually corrected that email to me.
Okay. Any other questions for the technical committee on PG&E's import application? Hearing none, we can move on to a motion.
I make a motion to approve the import application for Pacific Gas and Electric Diablo Canyon Power Plant, number 1-0431-00. Waste class, Class A and Class B, the waste form is unstable. The waste stream is dewatered resin and dewatered activated carbon. The volume is 357 cubic feet. The total radioactivity is 118 curies. Waste will originate from California. Diablo Canyon is required to send the export authorization from California prior to shipments, and the agreement will be for a 1-year period of September 1, 2024 through August 31, 2024.
There's a motion for a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion about the application of PG&E Diablo Canyon represented in item 9H? Hearing none. We can move on to a vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the import application of PG&E Diablo Canyon, item 9H in our agenda, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. And with that, we are through with item 9 on our agenda. We have 2 amendments today that are on item 10 of our agenda. The first of those, and before I go to that, let me stop and remind everyone, our amendment process is a little less formal than the actual import application process. It's generally done by letter. We do have a rule that allows for minor amendments that don't have to come before the entire commission, but our policy has been, and I think will continue to be, that any change in volume, theories, or anything else that we determine to be major will need to come before the commission for approval as an amendment to the agreement. Minor things like adding states to the point of origin of waste, we generally will allow that under our minor amendment rule that is part of our administrative rules. So, since we haven't had one in a long time, I thought that'd be a good reminder of kind of how that process works. So the first of these amendments is item 10A, which is an import amendment from Energy Solutions related to Sanofi nuclear generating station that some people refer to songs. So with that, I will turn it back over to the technical committee.
The technical committee has received and reviewed an amendment request from Energy Solutions LLC, acting on behalf of San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station. That was received April 5, 2024. It's number 1-0418-01. And San Onofre has specifically requested an increase to the radioactivity. They want to increase by 9,464 curies. And I'll quote from their letter. We are requesting this because the SONGS project is in the process of collecting the chips left over from RVI cutting, which will be placed into 4 liners referenced in the import agreement. And based off initial curie calculation, the total activity exceeds initial assumptions made when the import application was originally submitted in October of 2023. They have requested no other changes, only the curie increase. And though not strictly required, DCEQ did send a letter approving this for disposal at the site with a dated May 9, 2024. Technical committee recommends approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Was this initial agreement subject to our contingent curie program?
Hold on, I can tell you that.
And if not, does this curie request push them into that?
The initial request was for 254 curies, so the answer is no.
Okay, and adding this many curies does not push them to the limit for the initial curie.
Correct.
Any other questions for the technical committee on the amendment request of Energy Solutions for San Onofre? Hearing none, I think we can move on to a motion.
I make a motion to approve the amendment request from Energy Solutions LLC, acting on behalf of San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station number 1-0418-01. And that request, or that request is to add 9,464 curies of radioactivity.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions about the amendment request of Energy Solutions for San Onofre? Hearing none, we can move on to a vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the amendment of Energy Solutions on behalf of San Jose Nuclear Generating Station. And item 10A in our agenda, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. We can move on to the next import amendment request, and this is from Holtec Decommissioning International, and it is item 10B, and I'll turn it over to our vice chair.
The technical committee has received and reviewed an import application amendment request from Holtec Decommissioning International, received April 12, 2024. It's number 1-0398-01. Holtec has requested an increase to the volume by 10,820 cubic feet. And I'll quote from their letter. The request for this additional volume is because our decommissioning sites are generating increased filters resin shipments. Also in New York, HDI initiated removal activities at Indian Point Energy Center Unit 1, which will continue through this fiscal year. This removal and disposal activity had not been anticipated when we submitted the original the agreement last year, and thus we do not account for the waste volumes. They have not requested any other changes, so only to increase the volume by 10,820 cubic feet. Tech committee recommends approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the technical committee on the import amendment request in Holtec? I would note, and I should have said this with Energy Solutions amendment request, we appreciate Vern Rogers from Energy Solutions and Jim Buckley from Holtec being on one to answer any questions. We appreciate it when they show up, because they're always here whenever they come out of report, and we appreciate that. So just as a reminder, commissioners, if you have a question for the actual applicant, they are available to talk. Any other questions for the technical committee on the Holtec amendment request? Hearing none, we can move on to a motion.
I make a motion to approve the import amendment request from Holtec Decommissioning International. It's number 1-0398-01. And that amendment would be to add 10,820 cubic feet to the volume.
With the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Second, any further discussion or questions about the import amendment request from Holtec Decommissioning item 10B? Any public comment?
Brandon, I did want to note that we did receive a letter from TCQ approving that waste stream for disposal at the site.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion or questions about item 10B, the Holtec amendment request? Hearing none, we will move on to a vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the amendment request of Holtec Decommissioning represented in item 10B on our agenda, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. And with that, we are through item 10. The next item on the agenda is item 11, which is the chairman's report. And I will probably combine a couple of these items because we kind of broached them earlier in the meeting. As always, we are in very close communication with Dan Schrum, the executive director of the Low Level Forum, who has coordinated all the efforts of the various compacts on issues common to all of us, and we always appreciate the work that Dan does. One of the issues that obviously the forum is currently looking into is something we've already discussed, and that is which is item C in my report, which is 10 CFR Part 61, possible changes and comments that are currently going on with NRC. Dan has been very involved in voice concerns on behalf of compacts, the compact system as a whole related to that. And some of the questions that were posed earlier about what would our role be, if any, and how does that go about happening? Dan is really to champion those efforts and trying to make it clear that if we are going to have a role, it needs to be well defined by the NRC, and the issue of how that process will work, if in fact NRC makes a change, is also addressed very clearly, so we can have kind of a black hole up there. So these efforts have been really appreciated. We stay in contact with him as part of monitoring of that 10 CFR Part 61 process. As I also said, obviously, on the other side, we are constantly in communication with the governor's office about their position on this. And I think the letter that Commissioner Janeka read clearly sets out the governor's position, and so we will obviously also be in very close lockstep with them, with the governor on that. Item D is a legislative update. Obviously, we have a legislative session coming up in January. We are reviewing whether or not we need to ask for any kind of legislative change. Obviously, and Stephen will talk about this in a moment, we'll have to go through our appropriations process, so we know that will impact us as the session starts, but there may be other things that we ask for. Jeff touched on this earlier, but one of the things that I think several people in the public have raised, especially is us requesting enforcement authority. And we have discussed it in the past and how we were concerned that we did not have enforcement authority to ensure compliance with our rules. As Jeff noted, and I think because of some of the public comments and highlighting it, we went back and did a pretty deep dive into our organic statute and decided that it's pretty good that we have that authority already. And so one of the things that we may be doing in the short term is we may be asking our rules committee to look at formulating rules that define the metadata process for our enforcement. We were very concerned that we thought we needed legislative action on that, but after a further review and just really legal mind looking into it, we think that maybe we already have that authority. So we don't need to seek legislative action on it. So we are appreciative of everyone making public comments and asking about that, because it kind of brought to the forefront and forced us to really go through that process, and it's led to what I think a really good result. So some of the legislative potential asks we had in the past may not be there anymore. But we will still look at other legislative issues and decide in the coming weeks and months if we need any kind of legislative requests, and obviously we will keep everybody updated if that is something we think we need. Item D on the chairman's report is something that came up since our last meeting. I wanted to make sure we addressed it. There was a generator who sent us a request for a Curie release letter, and again, quick reminder, we have a contingent Curie program based on our 275,000 Curie cap, in which if someone asks for a large Curie allotment, knowing that they may not use them all, we ask people to simply send us a letter requesting release of those Curies when they're actually ready to ship. And all the agreements are similar. They says that you need to ask for that, what we call a Curie release letter or CURL letter, 15 days before you ship it. We received a letter that clearly stated that the shipment had already occurred, and there was a request for a Curie release letter after the shipment. So we contacted the generator and said, you know, is this accurate? And he said, yes. We sent it to the site thinking it would go into the record facility. We got there, and for reasons beyond our control, it couldn't go to the record facility. And our response was, well, without question, that is a violation of our agreement. However, because of the unique circumstances and because it's not happening with any frequency, we will allow it. But we're going to document the fact that, you know, it is in violation of our agreement, but we are going to waive that violation for this one time because of the unique circumstances. So it raised the issue that I just wanted to reiterate that we understand that things like this occur, and as long as they don't happen with any frequency, obviously we're willing to work with people, but we are going to be vigilant about the fact that if it happens with too much frequency, we need to stand by and enforce our agreements as written. And we will do that, and we will closely monitor this. There was some discussion about if this was a change in the Compact Commission's policy on this, and to be clear, that is not accurate. The only other time I think we've ever addressed this was, I think during the pandemic, we had a similar situation with waste that had come out of the Northwest Compact. And Earl Fordham happened to be on the meeting that day, and we had this exact same discussion in which somebody had sent waste thinking it was appropriate for the record cell. Turns out it wasn't, but it was already here. And there was a pretty lively discussion of whether or not we should even require that waste to be returned to the Northwest Compact and seek an import agreement before they ship it. And again, similar to this current situation, we said because of the circumstances and logistics, we didn't require that, but we noted again that was again in violation of our rules, but we were going to let it go on that one. So I want everyone to know that we're not so slavish beholden to the ideas that we will not make exceptions, but as a general rule, we are going to enforce our agreements and our rules as written. And I want to make sure that there's no question about if that's some sort of variation of our past practices. I don't believe it is. This is really just kind of a cautionary warning for everybody that we're always here to work with everyone, but at the same time, we do feel like at some point, if things start happening with a regular frequency, we will need to take action. We're clearly not there yet. There's nothing about this situation that suggests that there was anything nefarious about it or that they did it on purpose. So that's the reason we're so willing to be flexible. But we will monitor and we will make sure that if it does start happening with any frequency, we'll address it. So we just wanted to make it clear in our public meetings so everyone can understand that. With that, that is all of item 11, which is the chairman's report, and I will now turn it over to Stephen Reminder, Executive Director, for item number 12, the Executive Director.
Commissioner, you have Commissioner, you have in your packet each year about this time of year, we're required to submit to the Texas Legislature a legislative appropriation request and how much money we need for the following biennium. In your packet is the legislative appropriation request from 2 years ago, and we wanted to give you the opportunity to review that. As Chairman Hurley, myself, and Diane Fulmer, our accountant, prepared that legislative appropriation request. Y'all have any suggested changes or additions or subtractions for that matter? Feel free to ask now or comment as we prepare that over the coming weeks. So I wanted to put that in your packet for you to see, and I'll ask questions now if you want to inform about what's in our area.
And also, I'm sorry, also, Commissioners, our statute requires us to approve an annual budget. And so we will do that at our next meeting. Get all familiar with the format, the more flexible format that we usually present. It was very similar to years past budgets, but we will make some adjustments and some possible movements of money. So if any of you have any thoughts on that as well, please contact Stephen or I, and we can put that. And since she's not here and she's online, you can say this. Sumana has been very gracious with her administrative committee that she chairs to help us with the budget, and she will be, I think, the person that we turn to with those budget questions, and she is got some expertise in that. So thank the Lord that we've gotten somebody that knows what they're talking about. So she will be the person that I think will present that budget to us in the next meeting, and it will be her baby. And so you can contact Stephen or I, or you can just contact Sumana, because she will be the ones that her committee makes a decision about how the budget is presented and how the allocation of the current money allocated to us is split up for the coming fiscal year.
Any questions on the LAR? Okay, the next item I have on the for us to talk about is we're doing an update to the applications process. It's been suggested by a couple of commissioners to add an affidavit on the website for all the submissions that we receive from application. We're going to add that in the next few weeks, and I'll visit with you as that affidavit becomes a part of the application process for the truthfulness of what is being submitted in their applications. Yes, sir.
If we're looking at the application, would there be a way that we can make applicants put something in the field for the dates of the agreement? That we frequently have that problem where they don't put anything in and then it's unclear.
I need to adjust that. I thought I had that in there that was required for the application to be submitted, but I can change that. I will make sure that is a requirement that be checked or filled in.
This is probably do a checkbox for both
Right.
fiscal years.
Fiscal year.
It won't let you
Don't give them a choice, just say click this year, next year.
I will adjust that and make sure that that's the case so we can get a decision. Any other questions on that affidavit?
What about the small generator thing? It seems like that sometimes trips people up.
We allow them to check that, and we haven't put a verification if they are a small generator. We've kind of left that to Vice Chair Salzman and the technical committee and myself to check on that before we grant that. But I can look at adjusting that as well as we get a better process for that.
I've seen forms where they do, like if it defaults, if it defaults to no, and some changes it to yes, then a second question will pop up and say definition of a small quantity generator is X, Y, or Z. Do you affirm you meet that, requirement or something like that?
Yeah, we talked at one time about including the definition, at least link to the role definition. So,
We can add that in. It came up earlier in the PG&E application. Mr. Miller, who submits that for PG&E, accidentally checked the box. He emailed me to say he put that in error.
Sure.
So that's a good example of
how we might be able to put that process. I'll get back to you. How we do it.
And, you know, Mark is here, maybe some of the STP folks or Dick or Eddie, you might have some, is there any feedback from the users of this form on challenges with completing the form or something to be done to make it better?
The biggest one was the time period. I had to go back to make sure I put in the next fiscal year. So I think if you adjust that, like which year you're asking for.
So it could say current fiscal year with the actual date, next fiscal year with the actual date, or maybe other, if you want to specify it.
Yes.
A different range.
Mm-hmm. We'll put that in. We'll fix that.
that's good.
Thank you for that, Commissioners. And the one other thing I was going to add that I don't have on the agenda is we're talking about as part of the budget we received from the legislature, public education efforts. We're put together a workshop hopefully for the importers and exporters of waste in the coming months. This is the commission. I think Commissioner Sullivan and Commissioner Morse will be a part of the process for that. To update them on how our process works and get a Q&A from them as to what we can do better and make sure they have a thorough understanding of what they're doing in our process and how we can improve that from their side and understanding for public education. We should have that hopefully probably this fall. I think the summer probably be difficult to put something together here in person for that is our plan to do that.
Great.
Yeah, that's very important. I think it's important to periodically make a educational opportunity to people who we deal with, because we deal with our process every day, and so we become accustomed to it. We think everybody else does, but it is something that it would be a lot easier if probably on a periodic basis.
Would it
Because
be
of good effort.
helpful, the generators and the applicants, would it be helpful if we did such a thing like on a quarterly basis, or if we did something maybe on a more regular schedule?
Because we have a limited number of people that usually come before us, I don't know how well attended it would be on a quarterly basis. But what we did last time, Linda was in charge of this. We did one in Texas and one in Vermont.
Actually, the first one we ever did was in Tennessee.
Oh, so I mean, that maybe not regularly planned, but maybe planned in different locales, just to make ourselves available in different parts of the country to generators in different parts of the country. And obviously, we would probably do it where it was available online as well, so people could attend remotely if they want to. But I do think we probably ought to look at both locations and how frequent, and how, if it needs to be a rolling issue of different topics that move through those locations. So I think those are all good points.
Any feedback from the general before we too?
I don't know exactly what the prior content of the training or education has been, but maybe if it isn't already there, we could talk about defining the actual role and of the commission and clarify it relative to the role of the TCEQ. It seems that many comments come before us that confuse, matters are brought before our commission that really belong to TCEQ, and maybe clarifying that and where the distinctions are made would be helpful to folks.
I think that's the goal.
We can reach out to TCEQ to certainly get their perspective.
Any other questions? All right, with that, we approve with item 12, and we move on to item 13, which is our future meetings. Our next scheduled meeting is August 22nd in Montpelier, Vermont. As I mentioned earlier,
No, it's in
oh, I'm sorry, it says Montpelier on the, sorry, Manchester, not Montpelier.
It's in Manchester.
So the information package is wrong, it's Manchester, not Montpelier. But we may have a meeting before that if we decide to move forward and adopt our rule. So please be on the lookout for communication from staff on maybe a meeting in June or early July. But the August 22nd meeting is in Manchester. After that, in October, we go to Andrews, and we're not back to Austin until December. So I see that Commissioner Sadick has his up, so I wanted to make sure we ask him about our Vermont trip. Dick, did you have something?
You're still on mute.
You're muted, Commissioner Sadick.
We're not hearing you, Dick.
You're muted, Commissioner Sadick.
I raised my hand, just to correct that it was to be in Manchester. Although we're always happy to have you in Montpelier, but,
We may be talking to you about
I see the Manchester participant has left, but, he took off just as we were beginning to discuss this. But, we'll assume Manchester.
Lashinsky's here, so we'll make sure he knows we're gonna be in Manchester.
And like I said, the details of that Manchester trip have already been to everybody. I know this sounds like a parent to say, but try to get your reservations in soon. You never know, and the resort could fill up, and so make your reservations as soon as possible. Obviously, if you have any concerns, contact Megan or Stephen about those, but it'll be here before you know it. So, and like I said, we may have a meeting in the interim, but please be on the lookout for that as well. Go ahead.
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
If it was made aware that you would want to move to 10 a.m. as opposed to 9 a.m. We've been doing 9 a.m. meetings, we've been out of Austin, but we'll put them at 10 a.m. for future notices requested us.
I'll add, I like 9 a.m. meetings.
Everyone's personality and when they want to meet, so.
9:30.
Yeah, before we adjourn, I want to once again thank Steve Nance, thank Al Cristo. We have had such a good time here in Bay City and such a good time touring the facilities and getting to use this room. And it has really been informative and enjoyable. So we really appreciate hosting us. We appreciate all the work that went into this. It's always more work than probably anyone realizes to get a meeting like this together, from IT and tech issues to securing rooms and doing all the things that they do. So we appreciate that from SCP. I believe that Steve is going to have an opportunity to show us their emergency response center here. So after we adjourn, whoever wants to, we can all make a single file line behind Steve and go look at the SCP facilities here. And with that, we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Aye.
Thank you all very much.